Okay.
Oh, I made it. I just had
What's that?
I said I still have zeros. I made you angry.
I know that you have all that done.
I know. I submitted
Right.
it.
Oh, just now?
No, like right after you sent me.
Oh, okay, good. I finished. I was like, I'm done, and I stopped. Okay. All right. File structure. Okay, so here's one thing I noticed. So we have project here. So when I do a save as, and you all should probably, hopefully, know at this point that when you use the save as option, it takes your current file and it makes a copy, right? So save and save as are two different things. Save takes the current file and makes a save, right? If you close it, then it's the same file, just current, okay? Save as makes a copy of your file. So if I go to save as, I have the option to turn it into a project or into a template file, okay? If I click on project, and then I go to wherever I want to save it, right? You'll notice I have my .rvt extension here, okay? And I know it's an RVT not only because it shows right there, but because when I use this drop down, right, it says RVT, save, great. Okay, so what that means is that when I go to my Revit 2018 folder, it's on my desktop. Oop. Oop. Oh, come on, there we go. I have this RVT file, okay? When I'm back in my Revit, my interface here, and I hit save, Control S, Control S, Control S, and then I go back to my folder here, you'll notice that I get these backup files generated, okay? You will also notice that I can go File, Save As, and I can choose Template. And if I choose Template, you'll notice I have an RTE file extension, okay? So I hit Save here, and I just saved this as an RTE, so it shows RTE right there. And I'm going to close out of this. Okay, so now my file structure looks like this. I have an RVT, an RTE, and then I have all of these that have the RVT, but they have this number right before the actual extension, okay? So these three files are backup files, okay? This is a template file, and this is a working file, right? So I saw a mix, and I didn't notice it all the time, but periodically I would notice, you know, when I opened a file or something. So not everybody had this problem, but I would say like 3, 4, maybe 5 of you did. I want you to just pay attention to what kind of file you're working in, okay? If you are working in an RTE file, if the file you are currently doing your project in has the extension RTE, you need to save it as an RVT. Okay, RVT file. If you are working in RVT, you're good. And if your file name contains a number, then you need to file save as, get rid of that number, and save it as a Revit project. Okay. One thing that this is really tricky with Revit, and I don't know how to solve it yet, is that if I'm in here, I can click on my Revit template file, right? And it opens up and it looks just like a normal project file, right? There's nothing that somewhat differentiates it other than the extension from a project file, right? But it is a template file, and the idea behind a template file is that you take your, I guess, office standards and you apply them to a template, and you have a fresh, clean copy of a blank file for your template, right? So if you open this file and you start drawing in it, you're essentially kind of you know, you're contaminating it. You're contaminating your template file, which you don't want to do, okay? If you open up your Revit file, you're good, right? But if you open up a backup file and I click, right? There's a rollback option in Revit where you can restore backup files through the software, but you'll notice that I open this and visually I look at it and it doesn't look any different than my normal Revit project, right? But what's really scary about this, and I fell into this trap one time, is that if you open up a backup file and you hit save and you had done 4 days of work, it's gone. It's gone. There's no way to bring it back, right? And especially if you hit save once or twice and you override your other backup files, there is no way to recover that work, right? So it is very easy to, you know, very quickly go in here and think, oh, there's my RVT file, and maybe you don't see the number and you click on it and open up a file from 4 or 5 days ago, right? Hit save 3 or 4 times, overwrite all your backup files, and all your work is lost for 3 or 4 days, right? And I did that one time. And it was terrible. But but I guess my point with this is you need to be, number one, careful about your file extension, and number two, be careful about what project you double click on to open your Revit file.
I did that last week. I was working on my file.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that's the problem.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. And I say
Lots
that
of work.
I'm very, very careful with my files. I back up, right? I'm jinxing myself. Because it costs so much time and money when you lose your work, right? So I'm very careful about my file structure. What I've tried to do to mitigate this is I never, in general, professionally, I don't double click on files to open them. I just don't. I browse to the location of my file every single time, and I make sure that I open it through the software, right? And for whatever reason, me just doing that process keeps me from kind of opening something by mistake, right? Because I know that when I made that mistake, I know that this was somewhat like that, right? And I clicked on the one thinking it was the right one, thinking it was maybe the last one, right? And it was wrong, right? Because it somewhat looked like, I don't know, whatever. You know, I know it was covered. I know that was the problem.
There's no way to have that backup file to be different?
No, you can't. It looks the same. Number one, the icon is the same, right? In AutoCAD, it looks different. Yeah, it has a different extension. This does somewhat have a different extension. And then I thought, well, maybe I can route it. I can change the file structure in Revit so that it goes to a different file, but you can't do that either. So for whatever reason, they want all your eggs in one little basket right here, right? To your detriment at times. The other thing that is kind of dangerous with this is when you are on this splash page, right? If you, take this file and you save as and give it a new name or something, when you click on these recent documents, you may also inadvertently open up an older version of something, right? So be careful about opening these just by clicking here. Be careful about opening up backup files and saving them. Be careful about your file extensions, okay? So if you have your Revit file right now, if it's the wrong extension, all you have to do is save as, essentially. And the second that you do file save as and you name it, with this name, it will start generating backup files and everything will be okay. It won't let you. Let me do something in a minute. Let me look at yours. We're having network problems today. That's your solution to everything. Since noon, he's like, can I leave? Can I go home? I'm tired. Everybody's tired. We all want to go home, right? Raise of hands. Who wants to go home? Hey, all of you. All right. So I'm gonna go open, file open, and then I'm gonna go to my RVT, right? Hit open. There it is. Okay, so that was one thing that I kind of saw on a few projects, right? The next thing, again, I saw on projects was some of your views were somewhat messy, right? And so I just want to show you how to clean up your views a little bit and talk about placing views on sheets and making them look nice. So let's do that. Ooh, look at mine. Mine are terrible. Okay. All right. In fact, I am just going to get rid of a bunch of these. It sounds like a lot of people were kind of sick over the break. Is that you?
I decided to wait until Friday night to get sick.
There you go.
Pretty awesome.
Well, but your break wasn't, wasted.
I didn't tell my wife we had spring break. I spent a
What?
lot of time doing homework.
She didn't know at all?
No, on Monday and Wednesday, I just left the house and went to the
What?
library for the time we're normally here. And on Tuesday and Thursday, I just stayed at work and worked on homework
What?
on my computer.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. So
There was no spring break.
did she find out?
No, I never telling her anything.
Oh my gosh.
She still doesn't know what days I go to school. Come on.
Oh, I think she's well aware of the days you go to school.
Oh no, what time do you come home tomorrow? Every day.
That's funny.
I'll be like, spring break? They skipped that this year. You don't need to know nothing.
Oh my gosh. Well, what if she wants to go on vacation?
What's a vacation?
You know that.
No, I like it. Come on, we're flying her to Disneyland with my 7-year-old.
Okay, that's right.
Come on.
That's funny. All right, back to views. Let's add some views to our sheets. Okay, so I think, again, I want to just show you how to make your drawings somewhat clean to put them on drawings. And I guess maybe that will involve me deleting a few of my stairways. I know, right? There we go. They're so wonderful. But when you're working on these drawings, and I know this is, you know, the good and bad thing about Revit is that you want to kind of keep up on your annotation, right? And it's easier said than done. I know that, you know. But, you know, kind of making sure that when you have like a section tag, right, it goes through the drawing and then it kind of stops a certain distance away, not too, you know, far, not too short. Same thing over here, right? You don't want these extending like all the way down here and looking like that, unless it's necessary, right? But in general, it's probably not. And so you want to keep these kind of tight to wherever they're pulling their sections, right? Another thing is I want to make sure that my elevation markers are, you know, somewhat nice and tidy and somewhat close to where the project is, right? So unless they don't need to be, of course, right? So I'm going to drag these in just a little bit. I'm going to drag these in just a little bit. Okay. So this looks pretty nice, right? I'm looking at this floor plan view and I'm thinking, you know, the garage really needs to have its own floor plan view, right? I don't need to include it on the floor plan view of the house, okay? So I'm going to right click on main level. I'm going to duplicate with detailing. And I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to rename it main level garage, right? Okay. So I'm going to go back to my main level and I'm going to turn on my crop region, right, which is down here, show crop region. And because I have a new floor plan that will be my garage's floor plan, I'm going to just bring these in a little bit, right? And I'm going to crop out essentially that garage. I'm going to, this little guy right here, crop view, I'm going to click on that. And other than this little underlay, which I'm going to take care of in a second, my house does not have a garage anymore. I'm going to go over to my main level garage here. And I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm going to turn on my crop region. Here it is. And I'm going to pull this in here. Right? It's pretty to look at. There you go. Okay. Oh, my little tags are showing here. I think likely because my...
That's what happened to me, and but like it works. Like if I click on elevation, it's there.
It's there. Well, there's a couple things I could do here. I could select these, and because they don't apply to this, I could right click and I could hide them, right? Or the other thing that I think is happening is my annotation crop. You see, the annotation crop is this little boundary around here that allows annotation to exist beyond the crop region to a certain extent, which this little marker is annotation. So I could pull this in and it would disappear. There's so many settings in Revit, right? You think you capture them all and then you're like, nope, there's another, hold on. Okay, so I have my garage and I have right now my roof is showing because I have an underlay of the top of wall showing, but I don't need that anymore because I'm just looking at the floor plan, right? There's my floor plan. So I have my main level garage, looks great. I have my main level, looks good. I'm missing my elevation views from my floor plan here, so I'm gonna go to Insert, View. And we're going to create some elevation views just specific to this, right? This is the same way you would create interior elevation views. I'm going to click here. Boop. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And now those elevations, right, they show up in my elevation. Actually, those are, I just did interior elevations. So undo, 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 undo. Elevation, and it's because I had this selected, drop down, building elevation. There you go, right? The marker doesn't look any different, of course. There we go. Okay, so now I have all those elevations. I can right click, you know, or I can click on the little head of that tag and look over here at my properties, elevation 1A. We can rename that to north elevation garage, right? Do all the same. If I click on the head of that, I can, you know, crop in the extent of that, which is a good idea, right? Again, we want our annotation to be somewhat close to the object we're annotating. I'm going to pull the view range all the way down. Here's my next elevation, right? There we go. I'm going to pull this out. There we go. South. There we go. West. There we go. Okay. So now if I go to my north, there we go. Oh, maybe I didn't, I didn't realize my roof extended out that far, right? And of course habit, I always organize my annotation just so that, you know, it's ever so much, you know, just enough far out, right? A good distance away from the building, I guess, is maybe my point, right? And this stuff you'll have to maintain it, but it's a good thing to maintain, right? Your client is always going to walk in and they're paying you a lot of money to create these drawings, right? And so you want them to be neat and you want them to be tidy and to look right. It's a horrible roof. It's giving me anxiety just looking at it. Right, and I turn off my crop. Needs a patio. When all else fails, right? And we'll do it to this one. And what this does too is that, you know, I'm saying, well, I'm going to clean up the views on my sheets. Well, if you clean your views up before you place them on your sheets, it makes it a lot easier, right? Because when I place a view, it essentially takes the extent of this drawing and plops it on the sheet. And it centers it on the sheet based on that view. And if the view is all extended and weird and not symmetric about the object, then it miscenters it, right? And so to kind of make it nice and neat, you know, before you place it on a sheet makes sense because it saves you work in the long run. So we've got this going here, looks really good. And it seems like a pain because you're thinking, I just want to get to the work that I have to do, but this is really just part of it, right? Okay. All right, so I have my 4 elevations, right? And I have my elevations for my main house, and I have the floor plan for my main house, okay? I've got my AE 101, that's my floor plan sheet. Okay, I have my title block. My title block's been redesigned and looks really nice. Okay, and I want to pull my floor plan on here. So I'm going to click on my main level, click and hold my mouse, drag over the view, and click and place it, right? And because all of my annotation was somewhat nice and neat, except these little guys snuck in, right? The view is nice, right? I'm going to undo that and show you, right, what would have happened if I had maybe chosen to not crop the view and the garage was showing, right? So I'm going to drag this back over to here, right? And it kind of comes in where it should, right? But kind of not. But eventually I'm going to realize that this is including things it doesn't need to be including, and I'm going to have to go back and crop it and then replace it on the sheet, right? So it just somewhat, again, makes sense to do all that work up front in the view. I'm going to select those, right click, hide in view, elements. Okay, so number 1, get your annotation elements under control. Make sure your scale is nice, right? So when I'm on my floor plan view here, right, and I click on my main level and drag it over, I want to make sure that, and hold on, I'm just going to change my floor plan family or my title block family a little bit. Okay. I just wanted to show that outline. This is a pretty good scale, right? But if I had added this to my sheet and it was something like, you know, like that, it's too small, right? It's just too small. It fits on the page, but it's too small. Would you guys be happy, construction management students, if, right? Everybody's already shaking their head, right? Those architects give us this tiny little plan that we can't read, right? So now you all know what happens, right? Just fit on the page. So what you want to do is make sure it's a good scale, right? You don't want it too big because going both directions is bad. So if this were something like, you know, oh, okay, well that was exaggerated. Let's make it like 1/4 inch is pretty good. Even 1/2 inch, right? Deactivate view. No, it's not going to fit, right? But you guys get the idea. If it's too large for the page, it's almost just as problematic as if it's too small, right? And then I look at this and the title doesn't fit on it and all my annotation is outside here and there's a lot of things that just aren't right. And so, you know, oop, I didn't mean to do that. Close that out. What's that?
Control Z.
Yep, Control Z, the good old Control Z, right? So again, my point is just that, you know, you're going to have to go back and forth a couple times, right? You'll get a good sense for what scale is going to work for your project pretty quickly. It's just a matter of sort of remembering that and getting things correct, right? This is a pretty good scale. You know, me thinking about this, having done this before though, you also have to know that, you know, you're going to have some general notes over here. You'll have keynotes over here, right? You might have a legend over here. There's going to be some annotation that fills up this side of the page even. So you want to make sure that it's not too small, but it's not so big that you can't get all your dimensions and annotation off to the side. But that looks pretty good, right? I like to keep my view title nice and neat underneath the object and make sure that it extends out and that everything just looks nice and consistent, okay? Another thing about this drawing that is bothering me, and a lot of people are guilty of this, is that it's shaded, right? And what that means is that I have this color shaded, you know, on the actual objects. And when this prints, it all prints at a grayscale, right? So, you know, not a huge deal for us right now because these aren't real drawings, but if you were working professionally, that grayscale might obscure other things, right? Like dimensions or notes or annotation or whatever. So when you go to print, you always want to make sure that your visual style down here is hidden line. Okay. So our annotation is nice and tight into the floor plan. This annotation is nice and tight into the floor plan. My elevation markers look good. The scale is good. I have an underlay, it looks like, turned on here. So I'm going to turn that off. Okay. And these reference planes, when I actually print my drawing, they don't print, and so I'm not really that worried about them. Okay. All right, so I've got this nice and placed on a sheet. We'll do just a couple more and I'll move through them quickly. Right click, new sheet, and I hope that's the right one. Yes, it is. And I'm gonna grab my elevations for the main house. So I've got my, again, see, I don't have, I'm not cropping out my garage, which I really kind of want to do. So there's my north elevation. You know, things like this, I know we get in a hurry, but, you know, it really says something about you when things look nice. Those of you that have had AutoCAD from me before, right? I always say this, but it's true. And I can really tell how much experience people have by looking at their drawings, right? I can tell by how they line things up, by how nice and neat things look, if their leaders obscure dimensions or if text is obscured by other objects, how the actual drawing is constructed, right? The file structure, how many families are loaded, how many wall types are loaded, how things are named, how things go on sheets and how they're printed and how they're organized, right? Level of detail that's drawn in the drawings. I can really tell a lot by that. And so, and other people can too, right? So you want to make sure your drawings are neat. Okay. Let's go to my east elevation. Oh, see, terrible. Right? Nobody can look at that and say it's right. We'll pull these in just a little bit. And south elevation, my garage is still showing, so I'm going to hopefully crop that out by doing, nope. Right, and this crop region too, when I pull this onto a sheet, the crop region sort of defines the viewport, right? And so if I don't define the viewport to be smaller, this thing is just going to be unmanageable on a sheet, right? Okay, and I turn that crop region off. West, what? It's the 3D printer. Yeah. It must be the old one. Is it bothering everybody?
It's very musical.
Hold this close. No, it's funny because we had old 3D printer, right? And it sounds like a fax machine. It's like, but it's mesmerizing.
It
I
just
can sit
sounds
and
like
watch
somebody
it.
like warming up to play, some horned instrument down there.
It's all white noise to me.
Like, yeah, dude, you're getting warm. You're almost there. Almost. 10 minutes.
We first got those. Jameson and I would just sit and stare at them like, oh, do you hear it? Isn't it wonderful sounding? Let's sit here and eat lunch and listen to it. It's pretty
Nice
funny.
and peaceful.
All right, this one is a little bit tricky, right? So this is the west elevation, and I'm seeing the garage in the background of this, right? And what's going on there is it's somewhat of a view range issue, but in floor plan. So here's my west elevation, and if I look at my west, ooh, we've got an issue here, an issue. I'm gonna uncheck, recheck. That just solved that problem. That deleted and recreated my west elevation. But what was happening with that elevation is this, this was going all the way past the garage, right? And so I was seeing the garage in the background even though maybe I didn't want to. So I'm gonna just drag it to there. And we'll go back to that west elevation. Ooh, so we've got a scale issue now. Okay. We'll turn off the crop region, and there we go, looks pretty good. Okay, so we're gonna, we're gonna take these elevations and we're going to put them on a sheet now, right? So I start with my north elevation. And again, I'm looking at these, and you don't want them too big, but you don't want them too small. That's a pretty good size for an elevation, right? It kind of takes up about, a little bit more than a quarter of the page. Again, me thinking, I'm going to have some notes over here, right? So this is, I don't want to go any larger, thinking that I could go larger. I don't want to, because I know there will be notes over here. But I don't want to go any smaller either, right? We're actually maybe just a tiny bit smaller. Let's see. I don't know. We're kind of at that. Let's see what quarter inch does. Okay, that's still okay. Quarter is okay. So I'm going to reline up my view title, drag that out, and kind of put it on the page right there, right? Again, I have room for my annotation. If I would have made it smaller, thinking, that's just too tiny, right? I could put all 4 on this sheet, but it's just unreadable, right? It doesn't give any information. Okay. And I might change my mind. I might put the next one on here and think, oh, just too big, right? So, we just have to lay these out. So that's the north. We'll take the east elevation, drag it over. That one's kind of tiny. I'm going to change the scale to a quarter. Pull this little guy down. It's a game, right? It's like those little puzzles you do to get everything to fit on the sheet nicely, right? I tend to like my annotation to line up more so than my drawings, so I like to get my data markers all to line up, right? But that looks pretty good, right? So that's enough for that sheet, and then on the other elevation sheet you'd add the other 2, and I think that'd be pretty appropriate, right? The garage elevations are going to be a lot smaller, so you'll probably be able to do 4 elevations, all 4 elevations of the garage. So let's look at the garage. I'm going to do a little trick here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can select them all at the same time. And I'm hoping, nope. Let's see. Scale. There's a sneaky little trick, right? I can select all of these in the project browser, and then I can apply these properties all at once if I wanted to. So now I go to my next elevation sheet, right? And I've got my garage. See, that made it really large, but I don't really need kind of the basement, probably, right? And again, this is habit for me as well. Those of you that work in an office, right? You know that the client always pops in. Hey, I was just around the corner. Can I get a print of the drawings or whatever real quick? And if you have these, ready to go, then you can print them real quick. Otherwise, you're like, hold on, give me 45 minutes to set up my sheets, right? That was a little big. Anyway.
Just say no.
Yeah, I don't know how well that'd go over, right?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. You'd be like, oh, I don't have one. Our printer's down. That's the best answer. Our printer's just not working today. But I can send you a PDF, and by the time you get back to your office, it will be there. Right? That's a better answer. Okay. But you want these to line up very nicely on your sheets. Okay. Ooh, that's killing me. There we go. Okay. Makes sense? Yeah? Okay.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
We created like the majority of our sheets before we did the garage. Do you want us to go through and update?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, let's do that. I'm gonna have you turn in just a final set of this project. We'll call it a day. After this, you won't be working on this anymore. You'll just be working on wireless switch, right? But yeah, I'll want you to update your sheets and make them look nice and put your garage on a new sheet.
Just the elevations?
The floor plan too.
Well, we already did that for...
Oh yeah, you're right, you did, yes. So the elevations will be on their own sheet. The floor plan will be on its own sheet, and then the house will have its own sheet for floor plan and elevations. Yes, that's a good idea. All right. Any other clarifications that anybody?
I have a question.
Yep.
In the beginning, when you created another floor plan view for the garage,
Right.
you went duplicate and detailing, whatever.
Uh-huh.
I just did duplicate.
Yeah.
So both
Right.
work.
Yeah. So the difference between the two is that one duplicates it and keeps just the architecture, and the duplicate with detailing takes any detailing, meaning dimensions, detail lines, text. Yeah, so if you want a blank template of the architecture, just do duplicate. If you want it with all the dimensions and detailing, do with detailing. Yep. Okay. All right. So let's talk about railings and stairs a little bit more. Any questions on stairs? They're just kind of a pain in the neck in general, right? Stairs are just a pain in the neck.
Better than AutoCAD.
Way better than AutoCAD. Yes, way better than AutoCAD. But let's talk about railings and how we're going to add railings. So what I'll do here is I'm going to create an exterior stair over here. Let me look at my levels real quick. Where's the front of this house? Is this the front, I guess? Okay, we are going to, let's do this. I'll bring this down just a little bit. There we go. I'm going to create a new level. Where's my, oh, there's my door. There it is. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new level, and I'm just going to call it ground level. So, oh, that kills me, right? Bring it in there. Okay. So we'll go to architecture. We're going to go to levels, right? And I want to create a ground level because I want some stairs to go from, you know, from the outside up to the main level, from the front door up. So I'm going to pull this in just a little bit, and we'll say this is maybe -4 feet. There we go. And we'll call it ground level. Or finished grade, we'll call it. Finished grade. There we go. Okay, I'm going to close that out. And I'm going to create some exterior stairs, and they're going to go from finished grade up to main level. All right. So I'm going to go into architecture. I'm going to go to stairs. And I'm going to go into my sketch, create my sketch stair. Right. I'm going to create my, well, before I do that, sorry, I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to cancel out real quick. I just, you know, the 2018 stair, even from 2017 to 2018, there's a slight variation in the stairs. And I feel like I don't like the 2018 version as much, because I can come in here with forgetting to define the top and bottom constraint to my stair. I can just start drawing, and I'll be drawing away and then think, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to define my top and bottom level. And to be able to go back, I have to cancel out and undo all the drawing that I had done. So you have to be very thoughtful about defining your stairs before you get into sketching them. Otherwise, you have to cancel out of a lot of work sometimes. And even from 2017 wasn't like that. I was just working in 2017 last week and I realized the difference. So what we need to do is enter the stair command. The base level is going to be the ground, finished grade, and we want it to go up to the main level. Okay. I'm going to edit type on my stair type. And I want my maximum riser height to be 7 3/4, right? Oop. I didn't need a dash in there. Bad habits. And the minimum tread depth will do 1 foot, and the width will be 4 feet. Okay. So I've got my treads, right? Okay, so we're gonna go from finished grade to main level. Looks pretty good. So I'm gonna click on sketch. And the first thing I'm gonna do is draw my boundary. So we're just gonna make it really simple. And again, I just sort of start drawing these and then I come back and I alter them a little bit. So I'm gonna lie. I know I define that differently, but I'm gonna make these like 7 feet. 'Cause now that I'm in the design, I'm like, well, I don't know. That seems kind of tiny. Okay. Now I'm gonna click on riser, and I'm gonna start defining my risers. It tells me that I have to have 7 risers from the ground level up to the main level, right? Heaven on earth. Revit telling you how many you need, right? And I'm going to copy copy that riser. And I'm going to do 1, enter 1. Oh, it's not doing it. Copy, multiple, right? 2, 1 more. Okay, looks good. So 0 remaining, but I have a little bit of boundary left, no problem. TR, trim, click, 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 and I trim them. But what I just sort of recognized or realized is that I don't really like the design of my stair. I'm going to undo that because I need to have a little landing at the top of my stair, right? Okay. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to move those out about maybe 4 feet. Okay. So this line right here tells me I step down. I have 4 feet and then I step down, 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 down all the way to the end. Okay. In fact, I'm going to move these out just a little bit more. Move it out another foot. Trim, TR, click, 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 and looks pretty good. Okay. All right, so I'm going to hit finish once. Hopefully I don't get any errors. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. I'm going to hit finish again. Okay. I go into 3D mode, and I always look at it. Oh, they're the wrong way.
I was waiting for you. Kids.
Yep. And I'm going to click on my stair. Well, I did it on purpose, right? Just so that I could use this fancy little tool we have here. Click. And there you go. Looks great. Okay. What I don't like about this is look how goofy those railings look, right? That's not right. It doesn't look correct. So we need to fix those. You like those? You just have to bend down as you walk down the stairs.
Eventually you get to go up again.
You get to go up. Yeah, as you go up. My little kids could just crawl and slide down those. All right. So what's nice about the I'll talk about the good things about the railing tool in Revit, right? Because it does have some good things about it, but I think the railing tool is deceiving. It's very deceiving because it's wonderful in the beginning, but when you get into a lot more complicated stairs, it's really difficult to use. And it's almost, I've found, easier to not use the railing tool and to draw the railings in. Funny enough. So with that said, we'll talk about them. So the railing is separate from the stair, although it is generated with the stair, right? When you create them, obviously it generated them. A couple things I notice here. Number one, it's separate. So I can click on it and I can hit delete, right? If I want to. The next thing I notice is that this really should be horizontal, right? And be parallel to the stair and then, you know, follow the angle of the stair. So those are a couple things. The third thing I notice is that this is a rectangular handrail, and maybe I want to use a different type of handrail, right? So the first thing is I can click on the handrail, I can drop down, and I can use, you know, any of these other type of railings that we have here. And these are, you know, families just like any other family, so if you wanted, you can go and download some, right? Okay, number 2. This is sitting on top of the stair, but it's separate from it. And I want you to realize that railings are hosted onto stairs, right? So we have hosts, and we have hosted elements in Revit, right? So walls are hosting elements, floors are hosting elements, roofs are hosting elements. Floors are, I think I might have said floors. Floors are hosting elements, stairs are hosting elements. And stairs host railings, right? So railings are comparable to a door in a wall, right? So that's another thing I want you to notice, okay? Actually, I'm just gonna go to a floor plan view here. And we're gonna look at these simultaneously, okay? So railings, when we generate a stair, you get a railing. But if it doesn't quite work out, you can, number 1, edit this, or you can delete it and create a whole nother railing, okay? So if I wanted to edit this railing, I could click on it. I could hit edit path up here. Edit path does not show up unless I click on the railing. Click, click, edit path, and I go into sketch mode, okay? And the way that railings function, right, is I have a line. And when I'm generating, and of course you see where, right, where it goes, but the direction it's heading. But railings will only allow you to draw one segment of railing per sketch. So it's kind of a natural inclination. Hey, I have a railing and it's on both sides of the stairs, right? For you to draw one and then to draw a second one. And then you get an error that says railing segments must be continuous, cannot draw the railing, right? And you're thinking, well, I don't understand because I have one continuous segment and then a second continuous segment, right? But in actuality, you can only draw one piece and finish, and then draw a second railing and finish that one, okay? They have to be connected in order for Revit to recognize them as one railing, all right? The second thing you're going to want to recognize is angling a railing, meaning this one goes in one straight angle, right? How do I make it horizontal to this datum, right? And then horizontal to the next point. And the way that we're going to do that is to split it. So if I come up here to split, which is right there, SL, click, okay. I can use the split tool and I can split my railing where it needs to start angling. So if I click right there and I split it, right, it's deceiving. But if I split it right there, I have one piece. So it's going to go horizontal, stop horizontal, and then follow whatever angle those stairs move downward. Okay, so I'm going to hit finish. Ooh.
Something seems worse.
That does seem worse. We've got some weirdness, obviously, some weirdness happening here. Okay, so that happened. I don't like that. I'm just going to delete that railing and I'm going to draw a new one. That's my solution to this whole issue. So let's click on railing. I'm going to sketch a path and I'm going to just come in here. I'm going to pick an offset of 3 inches. I'm wondering if that was hosting to something, like it's hosting to the stair, but maybe to a weird area on the stair. I can draw to that area and to that point and stop, and I can click and draw a second point down, right? So in essence, instead of splitting one line, which I could have done, I could draw on a continuous length and split it. I've drawn 2 pieces. Okay, I'm gonna hit finish. Uh-oh, we have another error, right? But this one is a good error because I know it's gonna work. The other error was just wonky and would have not worked even if we would have messed around with it. But what happened here is that I created the railing, but it didn't host to the stair. So there is a separation there, and the second that I host it to the stair, it should work, right? I'm gonna click on it. Here you see how it says pick new host, click, and I'm gonna click on the stair, click, and there it goes.
Nice save.
There you go, right? My natural inclination is to say, okay, time to draw the second railing over here, right? But what I'm forgetting is that I can mirror things, and I don't actually need to. I can mirror this about the midpoint of that, And there is my, I don't know what elements were deleted. Let's look. It doesn't even give me the option. There we go. Well, we don't care about that right now, right? We have railings. So that's how railings are going to function, right? So you can, and that was a kind of a weird example, honestly, what happened when I edited that railing. Because usually I find that it's easier to just kind of edit what's there than to create a brand new one, but that was just a weird example of, for whatever reason, that it didn't work. If I need to, I can grab this, I can hit edit path again, right? And I could add like an extension if I needed to, right? And hit finish, and it kind of kinks down and extends past the stair, right? Where this gets kind of wonky is when you have like a commercial stair where you have one come down, you turn, go down again, and the next one wraps underneath the one above it and comes down, right? Because the railing comes down and it has to drop a certain distance and then go out and around and over and down again. And so Revit is really bad at joining those railings together, and they're very, very disjointed and they don't look right. And so the reason I say that at times it's easier maybe just to draw the railings in is because it does look so awful that people immediately pick up on it, right? So until they get their railing figured out, then, you know, for a complex railing, it's easier to just draw it in. All right, railings are a little bit difficult they're complicated to edit, right? So right now, the structure of this railing, I have a top rail, and then I have these balsters, right, the pickets. If I click on this railing and I hit edit type, right, so if you were to want to create a brand new type and define it, they're a little bit complicated. So I'm going to show you where the editing tools are, and best of luck, right, with editing these. We have the rail structure and we have the balster placement. So the rail structure, if I hit edit, I don't have any railings shown. If I hit balster placement, I hit edit here. This shows me that I have a top rail and then I have a balster coming down here. So you're going to see, I don't like to get into this a whole lot because it is somewhat complicated, but essentially in here, we're defining the pattern for the railing and for the balster. And it works somewhat like defining a wall type, but with railing elements, but it's super disjointed, right? Meaning I can come up here, I can click duplicate, and let's see, we've got the base is hosting it, top rail element, we'll leave that. We'll maybe change this to like round. Okay, I'm gonna hit apply. It probably is gonna be right on one on top of the other. Okay, okay. See, it didn't do a whole lot. Let's go back to that. Let me do something that's gonna actually show you something. So the balsters, right? We have a starting balster, right? So this is our starting point. We have square ones that kind of repeat pattern all the way up with a spacing of 3/8 of an inch, and the balster, we have our end post. So we have a start, we have an end, and then we have the pattern in between. And I can come in here and I can click on these and I can edit them. I could make them, you know, round. There we go. Did you see it? It wasn't that significant. Did you guys see how it changed? Okay. I know, right? So it changed some of them from round to square, right? I can click on this again. I can hit edit type, and I can do kind of some minimal type changes, right? I can change the way they look. I can change how they host to the base. I can change the top rail element. I can give an offset to different things. But really, it gets really complicated, and railings I don't feel like they function very well. So to alter the pattern is quite difficult. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my mind. Like this system doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So if you're looking for new railings, I think my best advice is just to go find them on the internet and load them into your project, right? But this is the area where if you wanted to change it a little bit, you could, right? So I'm going to cancel out of that. Okay. But those are railings essentially. So if I wanted to add a railing, you know, around this stair right here, right? We have our little stair right here. So I wanted to do maybe a square railing that comes around here. Let's do that. Railings can not only host to stairs, but they can host to a floor if needs be. So I can click on railing, and we'll give it an offset of 2 inches. And I'm going to just draw this little railing. There we go. TR trim, right? There's one segment of railing. I'm going to hit finish, and there's my railing around the stair. I'm going to hit edit on this again. What I should have done is drawn a little tiny piece that goes right there-ish, because I want my railing to come, it needs to go out 2 more inches. There we go. It needs to be flat, come here, turn the corner, and then I'm going to make it go down the stairs, right? You see how it gets disjointed at this point, because I'm going to do 2 railings also, because I want this one to host to the floor, and I want the one that's going to go down the railing to host to the railing, or to the stair, I mean. And if I did it all as one piece, it wouldn't host correctly to the items that I was working with. Anyway, so I'm going to sketch another path. 2 more inches. I'm going to offset it 2 inches off the wall. And I'm going to draw a railing that goes down. That must be the end of my stair. Okay, there we go. Okay, all the way down to there. Okay, I'm going to hit finish. And it doesn't look so hot, right? I'm going to click on that railing. And we're going to pick a new host, and hopefully the stars align. There we go. It hosts to the stairs, right? But here's kind of the inherent problem in the whole railing system, right? I can maybe grab this railing. Hit edit path. Bring it out a little bit more so that these items overlap, right? But it's just not a really great join. Right, so that one actually did pretty well, but that's how you're going to create your railings for your stairs. And if you wanted, you could create another one that went down the other side.
So can you put a railing on like the side of the wall though? Typically,
Right,
railings
right. There's some manipulation that has to happen with that. Yes. That we are not getting into today. Yes, you can. You can. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can host a railing to the stair, and then you can delete all of the balusters and the beginning post and the end post so that it appears as if it's kind of floating on the wall, right? Or you can create, if you're familiar with AutoCAD, you can do kind of extrude, like sweeps in AutoCAD, right? And what you would do is you would create a sweep instead of a railing that looked like a railing that followed the stairs, and that's how you would do it. Yeah.
Of course, turn back to auto.
I know, right? I know. It's, well, I mean, it's just what my husband, he works at Method Studio, and we were talking about this issue, right? And he was like, how do you get the stair rail on the wall? And I was like, there's just no easy way. And he's like, I'm gonna figure it out. Well, guess what? He didn't figure it out because, I told him. I told you so. We had an I told you so moment. It's like, well, I got really fast at drawing them on the wall. I'm like, well, that's great, but it still didn't solve the problem, right? It's just a weakness in Revit, essentially, railings. Yeah. Okay, so we have our railings. Any questions on any of that so far?
What would you do for something like a newel post? Would you have to look up a family?
Well, no. So what you would do there is you would define the railing structure so that instead of having like the start post being like a 1-inch round, you could do like, they don't have very large ones here, but you could find one that's like a 4x4. This baluster family is a profile, right? So you'd have to go and load the profile into the project, and then you would apply this profile to this area right here, and then instead of extruding a 2 inch by 2 inch or a 1 inch by 1 inch, it would do the larger post at the edge. Yeah, it's complicated. There's just no way around it. It's just complicated, right? Yeah. Okay. Right. See, so that it didn't do a whole lot, but you see that post, that end post is bigger now. Because I brought the stair down and I turned it, so that is technically the end post right there. Magical, right? I know. Railings. Okay. Any other questions? All right. I want to show you one quick annotation that is really fun to create and will help you with your rooms, and then we'll do a little bit of topography. Okay. I want to show you how to add room names, which I'm sure you've all been dying to do, right? All right, so first thing, I'm going to show you how to add room names just so you can have a little bit of definition in here. But the first thing I want to say about adding room names in Revit is that you don't just add a tag, right? So you're not just plopping like a piece of text that says bedroom number 1 or bedroom number 2. You're placing a tag in a room that is defining an actual volume in the space, okay? And that volume, it has a length, a width, and a height. And it is defined by these elements that enclose it: doors, windows, and walls, and floors, okay? So if you click on like a wall right here, you'll notice that over here it says room bounding. And that means that I can place a tag in there, and this wall acts as a boundary for that room. And the room tag that I generate, which then defines the actual room, the spatial quality of the room, it recognizes that boundary, okay? So I have a room tag in here. I'm going to tab and select it, right? So you'll see that I have one room tag in here. And let me just go into a quick section of this, bedroom number 1. And I'm going to try and grab, there it is. Ooh, there it is, okay? So when I grab that actual room, when I use the room tagging option, I'm generating this room, and it has a length, a width, and a height, right? So I can see that room goes all the way up to the ceiling there, okay? And it tells me that this room, which is that, oop, you see how easy it is to make mistakes? That room, right, which is that little X, and it took me a second to kind of find it, but I knew it was there, right? But when I hover over and I click, that room, it gives me some information, right? So it gives me the upper limit, the limit offset, the base offset. It gives me the area of the room, the perimeter, the unbounded height, and it's not computing the volume for whatever reason, but normally it does compute the volume of the space, okay? So when I add a room tag to my rooms in Revit, it actually generates a physical space, right? So I'm going to close that down. If I go to architecture and I go down here to the room and area tool palette, I have room. I click on room and I hover inside of a room, and it senses all those room bounding elements, and I click and it places a room. And I come over here and I click and it places a room, and I click and it places a room, right? What it's actually doing is it's defining rooms, right? So when you define rooms, it's hard to somewhat get rid of them. So when you place them, make sure you actually want them and don't delete them and then add more, right? Because you'll just have all these spare rooms everywhere. Click on room, click, place it. Mm-hmm.
If you delete it, would it stay there still?
Yeah. The actual room is still defined in Revit. Yeah. So I come over here, and this, I click, and it sort of defines all of this space, right? So this room now is like down the hallway, and it's not really differentiating between the kitchen and the entry and all that good stuff, because I don't have any room bounding elements dividing all those spaces up, okay? So what I'm going to do in that case is under room, I have a room separator line where I can click, and, for example, I could section off from one room bounding element to another, and it doesn't have very bad, I mean, you look at that and you're like, oh, it's against everything that I stand for, right? But we're going to turn these lines off, and ultimately, like, if it's a little crooked, it's okay. Room, I know, it's not okay. I click and I have another room, okay? So we can right click and I can hide those elements, and it turns off, and I still have the definition of the rooms that I need, okay? So what's really great about these is I can click again, and I can type in living room. Okay, and this is number 7. And I have bedroom number 1, right? And what was that area? Bathroom. So we have a bath, right? And we have, and if I accidentally forget that I already did 002, Revit tells me, hey, you can't do that, right? So 003, right? And we have, we'll do 004, and we have bath 5. Okay, and 006, and then kitchen 007. Okay, oh, 008. There we go. Okay, so if you want to start adding some rooms, you can. It's pretty easy, right, to do that, and I think that it adds some nice definition. And if your rooms are not separated, just add a room separator line, okay? If I accidentally delete that tag, it doesn't delete the room, it just deletes the tag that I'm viewing. So I can come back up here to tag a room and click, and it places that room back in there. And it remembers it, right? So it knows what that room is called. Okay, one more thing for tonight, we'll talk about topography, okay? Topography is also a kind of a complicated topic in that you don't usually create your topography in the same file your working model is in. The way that you professionally will work with topography is you'll create a file, create the topography in one file. You'll have a second file with your building in it. You'll link them together and you'll share their coordinate system, right? So it makes a lot of sense, actually. Although now that I think about it, well, I'm going to show you how to create just a flat topo surface, and then next time I don't have one with me, I'm going to bring a 3D CAD file and show you how to take a 3D CAD file and make a 3D topo surface really quickly in Revit, okay? All right, so I'm going to come over here to my Massing and Site tab. Okay, and I have some site elements that I can generate in Revit. I have the topo surface, I have some site components, I've got a parking component, okay? Topo surface is where I'm gonna create my topography, okay? And, oh, there you go. I was gonna say, you all know what topography is, right? Like the earth below a building, essentially, okay? And normally, well, yeah, I'm gonna say normally. Doesn't happen on every project, but I would say that normally when you start working on a project, commercial for sure, but residential it's kind of iffy, you'll have a survey performed on the property, right? So you'll hire a civil engineer, the civil engineer will go out, they'll survey the property, and part of that survey will be that they draw it in AutoCAD and they draw it in 3D, right? So you have 3D topographic information in a CAD file. That's how they work, okay? We can take that 3D CAD file and bring it into Revit and generate a topo surface with that. Okay, so which is, I don't have a 3D CAD file with me today, but I'll bring one next time. But essentially, it allows you to see what your project is going to look like on your site, which is really important, right? You can't downplay that because it's really important how the building interacts with the ground plane, right? How it's going to look, how the site drains around the project, how much cut and fill you have in the project is really important. And Revit just makes it so easy to do this. It's wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to talk about how to generate a flat topo surface first, just for today. I'm going to click on topo surface and, well, okay. Why wouldn't, well, I'm going to, hold on a second. I'm going to go to finish grade, actually, or site. Let's go to site. No, yes. I can't decide. Change the scale of this. Yeah, we're going to go to site. Okay. So I'm going to go to my site plan view. We're going to not talk about this just yet. Don't delete it, but we won't talk about it just yet. Okay, I'm going to click on topo surface. And I went to site plan because I got that error that said your topo surface is not visible in the current view, and it's because I wasn't on the site plan. Okay, so I went to site, which is automatically generated when you create your Revit file. and I click on topo surface, and immediately I'm bumped into a sketch view. Okay, but this sketch view is unique. You're not sketching a boundary in that you're drawing lines. You're placing points in AutoCAD, and you're giving them a height. All right, and that height will create the topography essentially. So you'll notice that it says place a point. Okay, and I've got elevation. I have absolute elevation. It's the only one available to me right now because we don't have anything linked to this. Right? So I'm going to start out at 0, and I'm going to come out here a certain distance. This would generally be the property line, right? I'm going to click, and I'm going to come out over here. I'm going to click again, and those are 0. I'm going to click over here, and you see how they start to somewhat, I guess, triangulate, right? I'm going to click another one here. I'm going to click another one there. These are all at 0 elevation, meaning this is all flat, right? Well, I'm going to change the elevation to 2 feet. I'm going to click here. Right? Has anybody ever seen a survey? All the topography on the survey, right? Okay, so I'm starting to generate topography, right? I'm getting all my contour lines. Let's go up to 4 feet. It's getting real here, people. Okay, let's go down to 3 feet. We have a little bit of a dip back here. And then we'll go back up to 5 feet and we'll finish. Okay, so what happened here was I started at 0, I sloped up to about 4 feet, we dipped a little, and then I went up to 5 feet, okay? And I'm just really kind of placing these around the boundary, right? I hit finish, and I have my topo surface that's generated. I'm gonna go into 3D, look at that. And there's, oh, sad, my little garage is, it is a mudslide. Look at that, right? We don't like that, so we're going to edit a few of these, right? I'm going to grab all my points, and I can change them. I can take them back down to like 3 feet. You see my topography immediately begins to change.
It doesn't look better.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Again,
Well, then again, she doesn't have a door to the garage. So there's no
That's
need
true.
to
Who cares, right? Who cares?
The door's at the very, very top. The window has to go so high.
It's right there. Yeah. It was crawling through the skylight. Okay, so I hit finish again, and there's my topo surface. Okay, so right now it's just a kind of a flat topo surface, and that it looks like a flat plane, right? If I click on my section region here, my section box, and I click, I can drag it in a little, and the second that I engage that ground plane, see, I start to get some definition, right? So it comes in. Here we go. Here we go, a little bit more, and that's what it somewhat looks like. Okay. So now, right, the client, and this is, I think this is like the most telling moment with clients. It's really kind of interesting. Nobody has a sense of topography, and so you design this building, and you know, if a lot of clients don't maybe necessarily have, they're not visual like we are, right, in that they can't see the building. They can't see the building, and they really don't understand the topos, right, and how the topos interact with the building and how that can affect everything. So I love this about Revit, that we can just generate these very quickly, even just for design intent, so that you can look here, you know, you can say, oh, I see how the garage is buried in this, right? Do we pop it up? Do we make the walls taller? How do we make this project interact with the topos, right? One kind of crazy thing that is happening with this topography, right, is that it is going through our project. So when we create a topo surface, it generates a solid surface, okay? And the way that we are going to sort of filter this earth out of the project is by using what's called a building pad, okay? And the building pad just allows you to draw a region, and that region filters out the earth from, you know, where it doesn't need to be, essentially. So I'm going to go back to my site plan. I'm going to go to I'm going to go to my basement view. Oop. There we go. I'm on massing and site. We'll go over this again next time because I'm going to bring my 3D CAD file, but I'm going to click on building pad. Oh, let's see. It'll probably show us a little image, right? it'll allow you to create a void. See that? How lovely in the topography where the project sits. So I click on building pad, I'm bumped into sketch view, and really essentially all I'm looking to do is kind of trace the outline of the project, right? Because I just want the earth to stay outside of this area. I want it to come up next to the building, but I don't want it to go inside the building. Okay, I hit finish. I'm going to look at my sectional view here, shade, and now you can see all of that earth has been filtered out. And it's been filtered out by that building pad. Do you see it there? It's kind of, it's very thick. I'm going to hit edit. Edit. Oh, it's a foot thick. There it is right there, right? So usually I'll create a building pad. I'll make it the same thickness as the basement slab, and I'll just like put them one on top of the other. And then all of the earth is filtered out of that view, right? So if I go back into that sectional view, the long section that I had on the site view, click, click, right? Then I can see all of my earth is filtered out. All right, we'll go again. We're going to go over this again. Let me just bring that down a little bit. There we go. Oh, all of our stairs. Look at that. We didn't even need stairs in the front. Okay. Any questions so far?
So, can you get as like particular as like grading away from your house every, like 6 inches for every 10 foot?
For the first 10 feet? Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. But that's really kind of the civil's job, right? But yes, you can. Yep. And I'll bring a 3D CAD file so you can see like how kind of complicated these get. We'll take a look at that. So let's do this. How many, well, maybe I shouldn't even ask this question. I was gonna ask how many has started the wireless switch yet? Couple? Okay. A tiny bit? Okay. All right, let's do this. We'll talk about topography again a little bit next time. I'm not going to assign a new assignment just yet, but I will next time, and the assignment will be to finish up this residential project, and then I will start drawing the wireless switch next time. Does that sound pretty good? Okay.
What does it mean finish up? I thought we were supposed to be done.
Well, we're going to do just a little bit more. You're going to add a little bit of topography, and I want you to put your...
For the garage?
Yeah, I want you to kind of put some elevations on a new sheet. I want the garage on well, it's already on its own sheet. But I just want you to finish up the set. It won't take very much effort. And
We need sections for garage too.
no, I don't think so. Nope. So I'll write an assignment. I'll post it. And but I think we're going to hold off until Wednesday. Okay. Good, good. Let me stop recording here.